Welcome to the Comeback Blueprint podcast, hosted by Michael Sawan. This is the show about rebuilding after setbacks, burnouts, and life-changing moments. Real stories, real struggles, real comebacks. If you're in a season of change, you're in the right place. Welcome to another episode of the Comeback Blueprint podcast. Today's guest is Michelle Smith. Michelle's story is one of survival, resilience, and rebuilding from the ground up. She became a young mum, experienced homelessness when her daughter was just 3, and lived through domestic violence and years of emotional survival that forced her to grow up pretty fast. Later, she met the man who would become her husband while he was battling addiction to alcohol and cocaine. And together, they began rebuilding their lives from the inside out. Today, Michelle runs her own NDIS company and helps others heal through trauma and personal development while guiding people towards purpose, self-worth, and transformation. Talk about a comeback. This conversation is about survival, healing, rebuilding relationships, and just finally choosing yourself. Michelle, welcome to the Comeback Blueprint podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
A pleasure. For people who are hearing your story for the first time, and I certainly took a lot on, what do they not see behind the person that you are today?
Oh goodness, probably the struggles. It was a really, really tough time, obviously, in different stages and points of my life. And given that my maturity levels probably weren't at the level that they should have been back then, like most, young people, I had my daughter I found out I was pregnant when I was 20, turning 21.
Yeah.
So I was forced to grow up really quickly. But like a lot of people, even people that know me don't know my full story, I guess. And I probably dumb it down a little bit because I feel like there is people out there that are way worse off than what I am. Yeah. So I almost feel guilt if I share too much because because I feel like there's plenty of people out there that have it way worse. Like I'm really lucky that I've been mentally strong enough to be able to put one foot in front of the other and not let my childhood and what I've been through define the person that I am.
It's very telling of your character that you've just given me this whole synopsis of your story, and yet you're telling me that when people ask about it, you play it down, or you said dumb it down. I wouldn't say dumb it down. I say you'd play it down because you think that you still got it better than everyone else. And I think that's very telling of your character. And to me, contrary to your own belief, I think that's growing up. I think you grew up quite quickly, as you said, and you've matured. There's two different things you can do in life. You can grow up or you can mature. You've done both. Take me through the emotional roller coaster, though, of growing up. You said it was around the early 20s you had your first child. And I mean, I would imagine that, you had some dreams of your own pre-child.
Yeah.
There was a different trajectory and that changed. So what was the day-to-day of raising your child those first few weeks?
Honestly, I became really obsessive.
Oh, really?
People would come to the door and I wouldn't answer the door because I didn't want anyone to touch her. I didn't want anyone to hold her. It's almost like I wanted to prove to myself and to everybody that I could be the mum that had it all together. The washing was done, I was showered, I was dressed, I'd eaten because I had friends who had children young also. And I would see them struggle, really badly. And I couldn't quite understand it, I guess, until I was in the midst of it myself.
Right.
But they wouldn't be showered. They wouldn't shower all day. Like it was too difficult for them. So I guess I made that my motivator, that I wanted to make sure that before lunchtime I was showered, the washing was done, cooking was done, like I was all over it. But I became possessive over her. Like she was all mine. I didn't want anybody's help.
Oh, well, I think you have every right to act like that as a mum, let alone a young mum. that sort of territorial behavior is absolutely fine. And again, it's a shock to the system. You had a different path in your mind at 20, you were going somewhere else, and then all of a sudden you're a mum, and you're looking around, and again, you couldn't prior to that, you couldn't empathize with what other young parents were going through, because everyone's going through the same thing in their youth. Everyone's going through school and through hormones and through breakups and through, social dilemmas. And then all of a sudden you get this curveball where like, oh no, I'm actually creating a human overnight. And your benchmark at that point of a good day is that you've managed to shower and make the bed and put it all together. And others are like, did I actually just get through term 3 of university or TAFE or whatever they're doing? So it's quite remarkable. Lots of hats off to you. Did you ever feel like you had to become strong before you were ready to become strong, or did that sort of just talk me through that survival?
If I take you back even a few years to when my mum and dad were together, my dad, I'm gonna say that he's very similar to my ex-husband. He has really good intentions. I'll start by saying that. It's just that he's conditioned to be a certain way and has been for many years. So his delivery wasn't what I needed, and my needs weren't met in that sort of environment. My dad was quite abusive towards my mum. I remember times sitting on the dining room floor, huddled in a ball, screaming for them to stop fighting because my dad would be hurling a tub of butter at my mum's head and calling her a slut and God knows what else, really volatile. So then I go on to have this relationship with a man that I fell head over heels in love with. Like, I was working at City Ford in Sydney. I used to work in the motor industry.
Cool.
I actually did my spare parts interpreting apprenticeship, so I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, master of not many. But I was in this male-dominant, industry. So as a woman and a young woman, you have to find your feet really quickly. So I met my then partner at the time I met him in City Ford, and we had this whirlwind relationship. I fell pregnant and he upped and left me.
Right.
No word. Just left. Told me.
Straight after, during.
He told me, I told him I was pregnant, and his words were, well, we can't keep it. You need to have an abortion and we'll have a baby in a year from now. And I'd struggled with, like most or a lot of women, with endometriosis and cysts on my ovaries, very painful menstrual cycles, and was told that I wouldn't conceive naturally. So to me, even though I wasn't ready to be a parent either, I thought, well, this is a gift that I've been given, and imagine if I don't get that opportunity again. So, and I stupidly and naively thought that once he saw an ultrasound or whatever, that he'd fall in love and, his and my love would prevail and,
gotcha.
But I had my rose-colored glasses on because that didn't happen. So my emotional struggles through that pregnancy were, they were really intense. Like, I went through abandonment and rejection from my father, who was supposed to be the number one man, that loved me and cherished me and looked after me and helped lead. And he essentially was, none of those things. And then I meet this other man thinking that, here's my new beginning. And I'm faced with rejection and abandonment. So it was safe to say that I had a few issues then.
I think it's a pattern, though, that you will follow.
It was, yes.
It's similar to another conversation I had with a guest on the program that had a situation where their father was a certain way, and then they just constantly found themselves looking for a man, a partner, who somehow emulated the same qualities of the father but weren't aware of it.
Because that's what's comfortable to the person, right?
Yeah.
So when we go through abuse like that, even though we know it's not right, it's what we know, it's familiar, so it's comfortable. So then when we meet somebody that actually treats us with respect, it becomes really uncomfortable, and we don't know how to survive in that situation because we've never been met at that level before. We've always been mistreated. So,
And you
yeah,
don't feel you're worthy of receiving that treatment.
exactly. Yeah, that's where your inner work comes in, which I obviously started later on in life, but I'm glad that I did, because the benefits of that far outweigh not pulling the trigger on it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it was tricky, but I guess I love my daughter.
Yeah.
She was a gift. She helped me grow up. You know, she's helped motivate me, I guess, to be a good person. And that's not saying that I haven't dropped the ball with her as a mum, because I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. You know, there's no rule book when you become a mum, unfortunately, or a dad. But she's amazing. Like, she's 21 this week. She's 21 on Saturday, and she's
Happy birthday.
I know, she's almost a fully qualified lawyer. So she is exceptionally smart. And I like to take some form of credit for that, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're saying there's no rule book, but I actually want to see what your rule book looked like, because clearly it's working.
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Honestly, I was just flying by the seat of my pants.
Yeah.
Faking it till I made it, basically, was my motto.
Welcome to humanity. So.
Yeah, but it was more, I guess, in my head, was everything that my parents didn't give me, I wanted to give her.
Yeah.
And obviously I had a few wobbles along the way, and I've done things that I'm not overly proud of, or parented in a way that I wasn't proud of, but it was all it was a learning curve.
There's no manual,
unfortunately.
like you said. Yeah.
I did my best.
That's fantastic. She's 21 this week. She's going to be a great lawyer.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
She definitely knows how to argue.
Yeah, okay. None of this surprises me, by the way, at all.
No.
I'm very happy to hear this.
Yeah.
Let's unpack your daughter for a little bit. Take me back to when she was 3. You were homeless. What were you thinking about then, in terms of, I know survival's at the top of your head, but I would imagine that you're thinking at the same time, I need to survive. My daughter needs to survive, but also I need to thrive, right? Because when it comes to children, it's not just about, like, you know, it's not, the bird doesn't just feed the mother doesn't feed its children in the nest. At some point, she's got to push them off that ledge and say, go fly.
Yeah.
So at this point, you've had your daughter for 3 years, you've processed it a bit. Take me through that chapter.
So my I'm gonna call my ex-husband, her father, didn't start seeing her until she was 2.5. Wow. And that was through a centre where because he had no relationship with her, so I had to fight to have him have supervised access initially, because I didn't trust him. So that was happening, and then obviously my mum moved. She moved in with her now, or her husband that she's with now. So I was homeless. I slept in my car for 3 weeks, and then I moved into my best friend's garage, and this was in the middle of Campbelltown in winter. Don't hold that against me. In a garage.
I'm not going to hold against you where you grew up. Where you survived.
I call it Scrambletown. It's terrible.
Yeah, okay. Come a long way. Yes, come a long way.
Yeah.
20 odd years later, it's doing well.
Yeah, so I lived in my friend's garage. It was like one of those, you know, the old school roller garages that you actually have to pull up and down, and they've got all those little weep holes in them.
Yes.
So when you're hitting 3 degrees at night and you're in a garage with no carpet, you've just got your bed set up and garbage bags with your clothes and your belongings in there. No toilet. We had a bucket. It was humbling, I'm going to say. Was
it humbling in that, like, because I'd imagine if it was humbling, you would have come from a place where you were oblivious to what you had. Like, you know, it seems like you've always been struggling.
Yeah, I have been, but humbling in the way that it's probably more humbling now when I reflect back, because I look at what that was and how hard it was. And I mean, I was scrambling. Like, I was asking my ex-husband, my daughter's father, for help. Can you help me get a rental property? I have no rental history, so I just need someone to help, you know, or can I come? Like, he lived in a 3-story house in Maroubra, and downstairs
Wow.
was a self-contained, like, he lived with his parents. He was a man child.
Yeah.
But he was in a self-contained section of the house that had 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a laundry, a kitchen. You know, like, there was options. He could have helped us, but he chose not to. I think he has a lot of wounds himself.
Yep.
A lot of abandonment and rejection issues. He later on, since when we got married, because eventually I stupidly went back, but I'll get to that in a minute.
Sure.
He ended up being diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, severe depression, anxiety, and it's gone down through generations because his mum was like manic depressant, and not right at all in her mind.
Yep.
So he had a lot of issues, a lot of shit when he was a little kid as well, that he still to this day has not and will not ever acknowledge and deal with, because in his mind, and because of the borderline personality disorder, you think that you're perfect and you're amazing and you're doing the good things and what have you, but you don't have the ability to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
Yep, because of how his brain is. So, look, I, as much as being homeless was brutal, it was probably for, I'm going to say 2 months. 2 months too long, but I tried to just tell my daughter, you know, we're on an adventure and we're going to have a new house. And we got a new house, which was great. We got our own place and moved in there. I started working. I worked full-time at AAMI in North Sydney. So from Campbelltown to North Sydney, I had to catch 2 trains. It was like 3 hours each way. I had a really good friend, that helped me. Essentially, she raised Graciela, with me, as it was almost like she was my partner. She was actually my brother's first girlfriend, and she lived around the corner. She was studying to be a teacher at uni. So she had the ability she'd have Graciela stay over at night if I had to get up to go to work for a 7 a.m. start, because I'd leave home at like 3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, something stupid like that. So I would either let Gracie stay there or I'd drop her there in the morning. And then I'd go to work, and then I'd come home in the evening, pick her up, take her home, bath her, feed her, and depending on what shift time I was on the next days, depending on what the setup was. But Kelly, she was an absolute angel. Like, without her, I would have been ruined, basically.
No, that's very fortunate. And it's interesting that the relationship was that she was your brother's, one of his former girlfriends?
Yeah, first girlfriend. They'd broken up at this stage. Yeah,
and you stayed in touch.
Up.
Wow.
And we're still in touch now to this day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like your struggles have actually helped you attract remarkable people. But it's, lucky you have a job. I mean, look, you can survive impossible situations for so long, as long as the chaos feels a bit normal. So having a job again, having a bit of structure will probably help you get through. Yeah, it was what you need, it's what you craved.
Absolutely.
Now, you've just reading through your bio and what you sent me, you've experienced some domestic violence in your previous relationship.
Yeah.
How much you want to go into that, I'll leave it to you. But I'll start with this question. How hard is it just from your experience, how hard would you say it is for people to understand the psychological side of DV when they haven't lived in it?
I think it's uncomprehendable. I don't think anyone actually understands the gravity of it. Sorry, I'll probably get emotional talking about this, but it's absolutely fine, because I'd rather spread awareness
That's the point.
when it comes to these things. Yeah. So, like, I wasn't physically abused. Mine was emotional, mental abuse, where if you can imagine a person that, you've got a baby in your arms, because at the time, so when my ex and I obviously weren't together, he started having a relationship with Graciela from around 2.5, 3. We co-parented until she was 8. And then my mum actually was talking to my ex, and he was like pleading with her to get me to go on a date with him. And she encouraged it, I guess, because she didn't know, and none of us knew what he was like. And in my head, I was like, you know what, a leopard doesn't change its spots. You know, he left me in my most vulnerable period of my life when I needed him, but I forgived. And
Well,
you know,
mum's just looking for a solution. She just wants
yeah.
she just wants Graciela to have a father in the picture full
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we got back together. I moved into Little Bay in Sydney,
Nice.
in a unit with him. We then went on to buy a house. I fell pregnant with Harvey. We got married. I fell pregnant with Harvey. Actually, I fell pregnant with another baby and lost that baby.
Sorry to
Then
hear.
fell pregnant with Harvey. And we decided to sell our house in Sydney and relocate up here to the Sunshine Coast, which was wonderful. I was up here by myself, isolated. He was in Sydney. He stayed down there for like 7 or 8 months.
Wow.
And I was up here by myself. So it kind of gave me a good idea of how I would cope with 2 children on my own if it came to that. Because it was, when we were living in Little Bay, he was the type of person that would come home from work and I'd be like this lost little puppy dog at the door, so excited to see him, you know, because I'd been by myself all day, no one to talk to. He wouldn't speak to me. He wouldn't greet me. He'd go straight into his office and ignore me. If I asked him to help me pack a dishwasher, you know, it would be, you're nagging me. We're not having sex now. So it was like this emotional abuse where he knew intimacy for me is very important in a relationship. You know, it's healthy. It's how one of my highest love languages is physical touch. So without that, I feel very dysregulated and disconnected from my partner. So he would hold that over me and use that as a bargaining chip that, you know, well, we're not having sex now because you asked me to help with the dishwasher, or you didn't do the washing, like I just had a C-section and had part of my bladder dissected and relocated. And he was abusing me.
You can't be standing and moving around for long periods of time.
But there was a basket of washing that hadn't been put away yet, and how dare I? And he would stand over me, yelling at me, calling me names. And if I tried to walk away from that situation, which I did regularly, tried to just take myself away, he would follow me. And it was like he would poke and poke and poke. And, you know, we've all got a tolerance and a threshold, right? So I would maintain my composure to an extent, and then eventually I would just lose my head. I had my daughter actually calming me down, trying to get me to breathe, because there was one instance there where I had a full-blown panic attack and could not breathe. I thought I was dying because of how he treated me. And it's funny because, you know,
it compounds.
Yeah, abusers like that though, they're crafty. They do it behind closed doors. Nobody knows. Nobody sees that side of them. It wasn't until I moved to Queensland and thought this would actually fix so many of our issues. Like, stupidly and naively, I thought if we moved away from his family, because his family were very dominant and a dominant voice in his ear about me, and it was always really negative. So I was fighting a losing battle. I kind of look at that now, though, that they were so insecure and so damaged as human beings that they projected all of their shit on me and made me feel like I was the problem. But
bit of gaslighting.
I guess fast forward to now, I know that I wasn't the problem, and my sparkle was shining too bright in their eyes and they couldn't handle it. You know, that's kind of my spin that I put on it now. But yeah, it was, I remember I was on the phone to my mum one day, and my ex-husband was screaming at me and shouting abuse at me from the kitchen. And my mum was like, what the hell is going on there? And I said, I've got to go. I've got to go. And she was like, no, you're not going. You need to tell me what the hell's going on. Well, she jumped on a plane and flew straight up because she was
Wow.
so concerned. Yeah. And she said to me, she was in
Mother knows,
tears.
mother knows best, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. And she said to me, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I've never seen this side of him, but he would do things to me like he would take every cent of money out of the bank and go and buy himself cycling kit because he would rather ride his push bike and be with his men in lycra, you know, but he would coercively control me and basically saw me off at the knees. I'd have no money to buy food for the kids, you know, and his excuse would be, well, I needed this and you should be more organized or whatever, and it was always put back on me.
Yeah.
You know, I cooked every night. I made sure the house was absolutely spotless. He would come home and have this beautiful cooked meal on the table, and he'd make himself a bowl of cereal, go and sit in our bedroom, eat his cereal, turn off the lights and go to bed, not acknowledge either of the kids, not acknowledge me. And this would go on for weeks. He wouldn't talk to me for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it just, that anxiety that you feel in the pit of your belly, that nauseous, like horrible knots that you get in your guts where you're treading on eggshells. You know, you can't be yourself. I laugh a lot and I talk a lot and I have a louder tone. You know, he would minimize me and tell me that I laugh too loud. You need to be quiet, you know, stop talking so loud, or he'd shush me in front of people. And
Wow.
just, yeah. And it wasn't until I actually had the courage to leave him that all these people came out of the woodwork and said, oh, you finally got your sparkle back. Like you know, he took that away from you. Finally, you're yourself again, which was like quite profound for me because I didn't realize that anyone could see that.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting that that you think you know your community, you think you know your network,
Yeah.
and your net worth, let's say at the same time.
Yeah.
But people are happy to turn a blind eye because they don't want to be the disruptors of what could
Yeah.
actually possibly be a result that you're afraid to take the first step of. I think that's quite remarkable.
Yeah.
And as part of a healing journey, I would have to say, you know, one thing that stuck out in that whole spiel that you gave me is that, you know, the relationship wasn't, well, I don't think relationships are built by perfect people, right?
Yeah.
You know, they're built by people who are willing to face themselves honestly and expose their flaws and work on them.
Yeah.
Clearly that's what you were doing.
Yeah.
But you were being gaslit the whole time by someone who wasn't willing to admit that they probably had their own flaws, which is, well, they did
Yeah.
have their own flaws in that they didn't want to give their kids and their wife the time of day.
Yeah.
And would rather be in Lycra, but that's your observation, clearly. So I think that's just still, again, everything I'm hearing is very telling of a person who's willing to improve, given that she had very little to start with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's hats off to you. And I think it's so
Thank
important that
you.
I do. I think it's important we bring that to light because I'm about to move into the story of what you're doing now in terms of rebuilding with purpose
Yeah.
and what led you to, you know, work in NDIS, which we'll get to in a moment. But I just want to unpack that somewhere through all of this, you know, you stopped surviving, you are now rebuilding and you were rebuilding with intent. How did you finally get to a point where you could pull yourself towards self-development?
So he did a no-show for this flight to waste all of this money, and my daughter pulled me aside. I think she was 12 at the time and said, Mum, when are you going to be done with this? He never changes.
Yeah, wow.
Nothing ever changes. So, because he used to stand over her a lot and he'd do it really slyly behind my back. And it wasn't until one morning I walked around the corner and saw him standing over her, abusing her. Man, she's bawling her eyes out. The poor kid was trying to make a pancake in a pan, and he was abusing her because the pan wasn't on the heat in the right way. It was too far to one side. Now, from where I'm sitting, that's a really simple fix. It's a teaching
Yeah.
opportunity for you to be able to build her capacity and teach her how to do it properly. So all he had to do was say, let's just shift it a little bit this way and then we're all
Right.
good. But instead of doing that, he stood over her like at her. I then defended her, which obviously then made it him and I blow up. He was screaming at me. I've got a baby on my hip trying to hide in a room. He's breaking down the door to get into me. In the end,
Wow.
my daughter took my son away to another room and hid. And I literally grabbed him around the neck and dragged him out of the house, threw his keys out on the grass and told him to get out of my house and do not come back. The police ended up being called. The police actually put a domestic violence order on him because of how he was speaking, and neighbours actually heard him screaming and swearing at me. So they were scared for me. So they called the police. He then went on to try and manipulate me. He'd break into the house. He'd send me messages telling me that he was coming to take everything. And he did take a lot. He took my birth certificate. He took my certificates for when I did blood collection and different things just to really sort of ruin my life
Minimize you.
and stop me from being able to actually go and secure my self-employment, because at the time I was living off a family tax benefit, which was about $300 a fortnight. And that had to apparently pay a mortgage, feed 2 dogs, look after 2 children, pay school fees, pay for fuel,
Yeah.
all those things. So that was really tough. So when Graciela came to me and said, Mum, when are you going to be done suffering? Basically, like, he never changes. I was like, okay, I need to hear her, because this is not good for her. Like, what am I doing? What damage am I causing to this child, and then to my son? So I actually started reading a book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. Now, if no one's heard of that, 100% go and buy the
You
book.
Can Heal
It
Your
is
Life by
one of
Louise
those
Hay.
by Louise Hay. It's one of those books that starts your inner work journey, I guess. And essentially, it gave me power and it gave me confidence that I had risen up enough that I felt that I could leave.
Right.
So that's what I did. I got myself a solicitor. I told him that he wasn't to come back to the house. The police and the solicitors both told him he wasn't to come to the house. That didn't happen, though. He still came to the house. He came and stole my dog,
Wow.
which he then held from me for 5 years. I did not see my dog. I know it sounds probably a bit trivial, it's just a dog.
No, but it's 5
I
years. Like, he
rescued.
was able to keep that from you.
Yeah. Well, what he did was he took him and he hid him. He gave him to his friend on the Gold Coast.
Right.
And he left him there. And then he had the hide to message me 5 years later and say, my friend can't have the dog anymore. Can you have him back? Like, mind blown.
At least he had a
Anyway,
trip on the Gold Coast for free for 5 years.
Well, this is true. The dog, he's since now gotten the dog. Like, he's still an asshole. He's still narcissistic. He's still not nice to me, but I have a force field around me now. So I sort of repel his crap because I know what it is and I see it. But he did have the dog put down recently. He didn't tell me. He didn't invite me to come and say bye to him. Nothing, which is it just shows another form of manipulation and how another human can really try and hurt another person knowing that something's really important to them.
Yeah.
So myself, Gracie and Harvey went on to rent a little place in Mount Coolum. And that's where I guess I fought tooth and nail to be able to get something from my divorce, because he offered me $20,000 to leave our $800,000 home behind with the clothes on my back. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not happening. You're going to pay for all the abuse that you've put me through.
Yeah, great.
And I'm going to hold you to it. And I'm going to hold you to account. So that's what I did. He tried to get out of having a domestic violence order, but the judge was not having it. And he was like, I see your type. I see you. You're an abuser. And you're not getting away with it, basically. So he was in a bit of strife. Back then, there wasn't a whole lot of information, I guess, or awareness spread about domestic violence. I had no idea the supports that were out there. Until now, I guess I've learnt, but back then, my kids and I were living on baked beans on toast, because we had no money. But we made do with what we had.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It was just a time in our lives that I'm grateful for it now. I try and put my own positive spin on these
Yeah.
things and say, well, if I didn't go through that, where would I be?
Absolutely.
I always wanted to live in Queensland. So he moved me to Queensland. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been able to move to Queensland probably, because it would have been really expensive. So I try and just find something, like my little silver lining, I guess. And then express gratitude for that, not forgetting about all the other shit show that I went through, but I just try and let that positivity prevail, if you will.
Do you think people can truly live and create a new life without having to confront the old one, seeing as you just made that move?
No.
Okay.
No, because what happens is when we go through things, so let's just say for example, with my now husband, I met my husband on Tinder,
Yep.
of all
Hey,
places. Thank
nothing
you,
wrong with
Tinder.
that. Yeah, that's
No,
great.
no. And him and I, it was very fast. It was like all or nothing, And at the time, I thought that I was pretty healed, I was reading, I was going and doing breathwork sessions, I was going to meditation circles. I'd been to talk therapy. That was a waste of time. I guess it holds its place, but it doesn't actually get to the root cause of where your wounds and your trauma and your triggers lie. So I was still, even though I thought I was on, and I was on a healing journey, but it wasn't as deep as what I needed. So when I met my husband, my now husband, essentially they say that when you meet your partner and it's your person, you go through stages in your relationship. So you've got your honeymoon period, then you go into your second stage, and your second stage is where you start to see each other's, flaws, I guess, and things that they've tried to hide, but the mask comes off, and then you're sort of seeing what's going on. You're getting triggered. That's normally the stage that people run away and they leave because it gets too hard. It's confronting. Your partner is, let's just say my husband, that if he triggered me, it's actually not him that's the issue. He's holding a mirror up, showing me what wound I need to heal, because that trigger is revealing something inside of me that I need to fix.
Yeah.
So I'm just really lucky that I've met this man that has had a very similar story to me with his ex-wife, had intimacy withheld, tells me about times when he was laying in bed crying, thinking, why doesn't this person love me? Why don't they want to touch me? Where him and I both have done the same things. We both felt like we weren't enough. We both thought it was us and held that on our shoulders when really it wasn't us. So, going through, I guess, inner work and healing those parts of you, it is an emotional roller coaster, and for some people it's really hard. Like, I've healed parts in myself by doing like a balancing process. I'm doing now frameworks where I have balancing processes, detachment processes, where people have come to me and they're struggling with anxiety, and I can literally remove that and it
Wow.
changes their lives. So there are things that we can do that heal those things. Obviously, when I was going through all of this, I didn't know any of this. I didn't understand any of this. It's only through my own work and me hiring a coach myself that I loved his practices, and they were so beneficial for me. They literally changed my whole life, that I was like, oh my God, I've got to do his facilitation course.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads me to where I am now. So,
And speaking of now, You're now
Yeah.
running an NDIS company, and
Yeah.
while helping people heal emotionally, which is what was fantastic from what you've just told me. Um,
Yeah.
let's unpack the company and what led you to it.
Yeah. So when I left my ex-husband, my first husband, um, I honestly felt like I had no
Yeah,
purpose. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing here. And I guess you can call me a bit woo-woo that I went and I put my feet in the water and in the sand, and I was looking at the sky, talking to the universe, saying, "Give me a sign. What is my purpose? Like, what am I supposed to be doing here?" And that afternoon, I opened my phone and there was this Facebook ad that popped up. And it was for a Certificate 3 in individual
yeah.
support. And I was like, okay, this is my sign. I rang them. They had one position left. I said, I'll take it. It was $150. Bargain.
Wow.
I will
Thank you,
take it.
universe. Yeah,
Yeah, so that was on a Saturday, I
yeah,
think. I started the following week, like it was, straight in. So I started studying. I started doing my placement in aged care, which I loved. Bloody hard work. They don't make enough money in my book, for how much they have to do. It is strenuous and, emotionally
yeah.
heavy. But then they brought out the COVID vaccines and how they were mandatory. And I was like, nah, screw this. I'm not putting that shit in my body when I'm healthy, like not happening. So I had to stop doing my placement. I then applied for a job with a really big company down in Moffat Beach called Supported Care.
Yep.
Which they gave to me straight away, which was great. And that was in mental health. Now, I was put in a still house for my first shift, green as no body shifts, no training. The only training I had is what I had from living with a person with borderline personality disorder and depression and anxiety. So I had nothing. I got put into a house with 3 grown men, paranoid schizophrenic, hallucinating, voice hearing, delusional, screaming profanity at the top of their lungs and like talking to a wall, basically, which was super confronting. But what I learned about myself is that I actually love that shit. I loved it. I felt like I understood them on a different
Yeah.
level, I guess. So I thrived. I loved going to work. I remember actually saying to my ex-husband, which was probably a little bit of a kick in the guts, but I thanked him and said to him, if it wasn't for your mental illness, I wouldn't be as good at my job as what I am. So thank
Ah,
you,
I'd be
and
keen to
I
know what he
realized
said.
after, he was pissed off at
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
But I was like, well, I'm just being
yeah,
honest. Like, this is my journey and I'm not going to minimize myself anymore. So here's my voice, hear me roar, take it or leave it. But yeah, I am grateful for that because it did essentially give me an upper hand with how to deal with people that are severely mentally
yeah.
ill.
It's perspective.
Um,
It's giving you perspective, and that
yeah,
way you can pay it forward.
yeah,
And I think yeah. I don't know if Michelle. I'm just putting a fake timeline here, but don't know if Michelle 10 years ago could have taken on this role the same way. But I'd
yeah,
I'd imagine that in something like this and what you do now, you probably think about the young Michelle often and go, "Thank you
yeah.
as well for what you went through."
Mm. I do. It's funny because part of your inner work is especially if it's like childhood trauma, is getting a photo of
Yeah.
yourself and just like visualizing and talking to that little girl and, asking, like I ask my clients this question, if you could go back and you could give, your child self advice, what would you
What would
say?
you say?
You
What would
know,
you say?
and for me, honestly, this is going to get me really choked up. But I would just tell her that she's
It's
enough
beautiful.
and that she's worthy of love and to hang in there because beautiful things are going to come and, just that I've got her.
Yeah.
I, yeah, I just love her.
It's so unfortunate when I'm hearing your story that you weren't in a position all those years ago to actually believe you were worthy of love, and that's not because you weren't. It's
Yeah.
just the circumstances weren't allowing it. But you had a
Yeah.
daughter that survived off you and loved you unconditionally.
Yeah.
And you had, I know you haven't mentioned God here, but I do believe in God, and I believe that He put you on a path to say, you know what, you went through what you went through,
Yeah.
so that you could learn. And the funny one, the funniest one is that thanks to what your husband put you through, you are doing better
Yeah.
now, than what you
Yeah.
thought was achievable. I
Yeah.
really think that the comeback speaks for itself. I think it's a beautiful comeback story. Um,
Yeah.
if you could define, if you could just give like one piece of advice to your daughter now that she's going into the big world, and I feel like she give you more advice based on what you're telling me than the other way around. But what would you
Yeah.
want her to hear?
Um, Honestly, I've tried to say this to
Yeah,
her, but she's quite
put it here so
resistant. But
we can make it official.
I would love to. I've told her basically that I actually want to do some work on her because all those things and all those situations, I guess, that she witnessed, regardless of whether she thinks they affect her or
Mm.
not, that subconscious, that is strong, and it does affect her. And I can see it, but she's not ready yet. She has so much I'm fine, does the whole, but I just want to heal those parts in her. If I'm responsible in some form for any sort of negative vibes or any trauma or any triggers that she has, I feel very responsible for those, and I feel that it's my job to help fix
Yeah.
those. So I'm trying to call her forward and allow me the opportunity to heal those parts. But I guess when she's ready, she'll come back
Most
around.
times when people say
Um,
fine, it's everything but. And so,
oh,
yeah,
exactly. I learned that with my now
yeah,
husband. He always used to give me the "I'm fine" or "I'm
yeah.
good." And now when I hear that, it triggers me a little bit because at that time he was anything but fine and anything but good. Um,
Well, at
yeah,
some
he
point when this does go live, she'll hear it, and hopefully we can maybe we can get you both on at some point. That'd be interesting. Um,
yeah, yeah.
um, what does comeback mean to you?
Um, Rebuild and rise.
Oh,
That's probably yeah, that's probably the shortest version that I can give you of that is to rebuild, to actually show up and invest in
mm,
myself and show myself love and compassion and a bit of grace as well. Um and just to rebuild myself so I'm an absolute powerhouse of a woman that is able to share my experiences and my life experiences and potentially impact or help others because after doing my values, my core values and my purpose is to help as many people as humanly possible live a, life without limitations where they have self-confidence and they don't minimize
mm.
themselves, they have love and compassion and growth and then all these beautiful things will come to them. Um it's just that people have a lot of resistance and fear, I guess, around that because it is uncomfortable.
We have
Um
to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's the only way we're going to
That's
grow.
my
Yeah.
saying. I say that all the
Yeah, just
time.
that's only the only way to grow. And I've been comfortable and uncomfortable at many times, but I think I've get to a point now as an adult hitting 40, I
Yeah,
can absolutely appreciate that those uncomfortable moments are the most telling of your character.
yeah,
And that's what sets you up for success in the next chapter.
100%. They're the most beautiful
They
moments,
are.
I didn't like I guess what you were asking me as well, sorry, just to circle back for a
Sure.
second, about my NDIS
Yeah,
company.
please give the
So,
plug. What can we know about it?
yeah, so it's called Nurture and Bloom Support
Yep.
Services. because I want to nurture my participants and help them bloom.
Where are
and
you guys
blossom.
blooming? Where are you based?
We're Sunshine
Okay,
Coast.
yep.
Yeah, it's all over the sunny coast. So at the moment, the NDIS, like, there's heaps of changes happening. It's brutal. It's dog eat dog at the moment. I guess I got into that because I felt like my purpose was to help people, which it is, but that wasn't the right space for me. And I've still got it. I've had it for 3 years. I've got regular, like, my consistent participants that are really loyal to me, and they've been with me since the get-go. It looks after our family. My husband works as a support worker for me with one of our male clients. And basically all they do is fish and catch crabs every day. So it's great. Last night he came home with whiting for me.
Oh,
so I
beautiful.
got fresh fish
Yeah.
for dinner. But it's not my purpose. It's not people under the NDIS, and this will probably ruffle a few feathers, but I'm just going to say it how it is. It's taxpayers' money that these participants are getting. Now, there are participants out there 100% that absolutely need a lot of funding and a lot of support, because whether it's that they've got a physical disability or an intellectual disability and they do not have the capacity to live independently, absolutely they need it. But then you've got clients that have the capacity to live independently, and they do live independently, but they're too lazy to do anything, to shower, to brush their teeth, to make healthy. They'd rather buy cartons of cigarettes than buy food. And then they cry poor mouth. There's other people out there that actually deserve to have this level of funding because they actually want to use it for goodwill and to improve themselves. So looking back now upon reflection, yes, I'm still helping people and I still impact their lives in a positive way, and I love that. Is it fulfilling to me? Not really, because I'm very results driven. I like to see people thrive. I want to see people change their lives. And in that space, you're very limited as to who's going to want to change their lives and actually grow. A lot of the clients are just happy sitting in their pity parties, and living their life as they are. So that's kind of what's led me now to go down the coaching, healing sort of space, because my husband, when we met, I had no idea how bad things were for him. He's had a really, I don't even know the word to use. I'm going to say the worst type of childhood that you can possibly imagine, without, invading his privacy or whatever and saying too much. But his upbringing was very similar to mine. But then in a lot of aspects, he had a lot of alcohol abuse around him, a lot of abuse. His dad walked out of them. So you can imagine he had abandonment issues. Fast forward, then he's in a marriage with 4 children, and his wife doesn't want to, have any intimacy with him. And he's working, like, he had a business that he had for 25 years, an air conditioning business that was absolutely massive, like millions of dollars in this business. And a wife that cared more about going to coffee with her friends and would schedule in intimacy once a week. You can imagine how that felt for a man, where he's out slogging it out. He'd come home. She wouldn't even cook him a meal. Oh, sorry, there's nothing left. The kids ate it all. Like, in my head, like, I'm busy. I'm busy now. I'm trying to run 2 businesses as well as do study myself, as well as every other week we've got 6 bloody kids in the house. But I still manage to cook him lunch or cook him dinner and make sure that he's all right, because that's just what you do when you love somebody. So he was in turmoil and I guess turned to drugs and alcohol to numb himself, because he had a wound there that at the time, I guess, your wounds become your wisdom. And your life ends up being a reflection of your greatest wound. So because of his wounds, he wanted to numb himself. And the only way he knew how to do that was by using and abusing substances and alcohol. So when I met him, I didn't actually know all of this. And, we were together, probably 4 weeks before we started living together. And that's when things started to show. So I kind of put up with it for, 3 months. And then after that, I was like, that's it. Enough's enough now. This needs to stop. I've always made him my number one priority because I believe when you're married to somebody or you're with somebody that they should be your priority because your relationship trickles down and provides, the kids. A lot of people are really old school though, and they think the kids should be the number one priority. But what happens when those kids grow up and move out and leave the nest? What do you have then? What foundation have you built? You need a strong foundation with your husband or your wife or significant other so that then you can show your children what a marriage should look like. And,
so they can emulate what you do and carry that forward.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
They end up that they mirror, they model our behavior. So if we're not setting, and look, I'm not saying that we're perfect and I'm not saying that we don't argue and we don't get dysregulated, but if you can do that in front of your children and still provide them with lessons amongst that. So, mum's feeling really upset right now and this is why. How do you think I should calm myself down? What do you think I should do? What do you think is going to help me? And just try and use it as a teaching opportunity. But yeah, so I was lucky enough that because I love my husband, with my whole heart, with everything, every being of my body, and he loves me unconditionally, exactly the same. We have called each other forward, and we've been on this trajectory of growth. He has been clean for 2 years. It was 2 years in April.
Yeah, wow.
He did it on his own. And do you know, when I actually challenge him on this and ask him how or why, he always says, it's because of me. I changed his life because I gave him what he didn't have as a child and in a marriage. He didn't have the level of love and appreciation and value that he needed, and that's why he turned to substances and alcohol. Like it seems so simple when you break it down like that. But when he's tried to bring this up with his ex-wife, she never holds herself to account. She just blames him.
Yeah.
So at least he's at a point now where he's able to identify that she's projecting her shit on him and she's probably never going to change because she won't hold herself to account. She just blames him.
Yeah.
But he's a powerhouse of a man. Like he's actually studying himself. He wants to be a drug and alcohol counselor.
That's awesome.
To help people. Yeah, because he's been to rehab and he said when you come out of rehab, there's nothing there in between. You're just left on your own. There's a gap there that needs to be bridged.
Yep.
So that's where he sees that gap and he actually wants to bridge that for people and impact them through his own lessons that he's learned, which is really beautiful. But yeah, he's a different person. And look, I can take some credit for it, but I've just tried to model and mirror a certain behavior and then teach him and challenge him through us talking. And now obviously I've got my frameworks, which I've done on him, which sometimes he has resistance around. But once I probe him and ask the right questions, oh my gosh, what he gets from that is, like he says, he actually did a testimony on my page and said that I've literally changed his life because he's gone from being a full-blown drug addict and alcoholic to clean.
And you get to live with that testimony every night. So that's pretty good.
I do.
That's pretty good.
It is. It's honestly so beautiful.
Yeah.
I think, love is beautiful.
It is.
We all deserve love. But when you meet a person that actually wants to invest in their growth and support you. Like, he is my biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
You know, he's screaming for me. He just backs me 100% all the time. And that's something that I would have run from before because I was too damaged myself.
Yeah.
But now I see it for what it is, and I'm so bloody grateful that we're able to do this together and go on this journey together. Like, it's quite powerful when you think about it. And then you think about how that impacts our children, because he's got 4 and I've got 2 every other week. So the house is very busy, but at least the kids will be able to grow up and see what a healthy marriage with love and affection looks like. I think that's a beautiful gift that we can pass on to the kids. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we'll be rooting for you for sure, because you've come a long way.
Thank you.
I want to just get to sort of a rapid fire section where I just got some questions lined up, and I just want you, without giving any thought to it, now that,
gosh.
but this should summarize our entire chat. Don't overthink it. Just 1 or 2 words if you can, or a sentence. Just enjoy it.
Okay.
I think there's, I wrote down how many? I wrote down about 6 or 7 questions there. So let's see how we go. You ready? Okay. 1.
Yeah.
Biggest lesson hardship has taught you?
Gratitude.
Gratitude. What's one belief you had to unlearn?
Oh, shit. That's a hard one.
I reckon I've got one for you, but you have a crack.
Yeah, one belief. Well, I guess my limiting beliefs of feeling like I wasn't enough would be a big one.
That's what I thought. Unworthy.
Is that what you were thinking?
Unworthy. Yeah. What drains, this is just from your experience, what drains people the most when it comes to emotions?
I think, they're sitting in fight or flight normally when they're going through a whole lot of shit, and trying to keep that mask on and pretend essentially, and not be 100% their true self is exhausting. I don't care what anyone says. It is exhausting when you actually do the work and you're able to unveil yourself and be yourself, your true, authentic self. Then that's not exhausting, because you're living a life full of purpose.
You're just doing you every day. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What gives you peace today?
I don't know. Myself, I guess. My mind.
I think also just living an honest life, which you just said in the previous answer. I think that would give you so much peace.
I'm living in alignment with my core values right now. And because I'm doing that, I have so much motivation, so much drive, so much just power, where I have a goal and I am full fucking send on it. I am locked in, because, whereas before I was on the couch, almost felt depressed, and I've never suffered from depression before. I was deflated. I wasn't excited for life, because I wasn't living in alignment with my core values and my purpose.
What's something you no longer tolerate in your life?
Shit, abuse, all of the above. You know, I will not be minimized. I have a voice. I'm not letting anybody ever again take that away from me. I'm not giving them that power over me.
Do you think comebacks are ever fully finished?
No, because I think that doesn't matter what age we are, we're always learning. We're always growing, if we're open to that. I mean, some people, I guess, aren't like that. And then they live miserable lives and they're never fulfilled because they put it in the too hard basket. Yeah. That's not me. I feel like I am going to be learning until the day I die and evolving, you know, and that's a really beautiful thing when you can acknowledge that and sort of step into that. It holds a lot of power.
Well, you just start to rust and you don't grow anymore when you go, oh, I know everything, I'm finished. Like, what I have is enough.
Yeah.
What's your definition of self-worth now?
Oh gosh, my definition of self-worth would be, I guess, just being true to yourself, being authentic, trusting yourself, loving yourself, respecting yourself. You know, that all comes under self-worth for me, because there's been times in my life where I didn't know my worth, and then I didn't respect myself. I didn't trust my voice. I didn't trust my intuition. And for a woman and a man, like my husband, his intuition is so freaking strong. It's like he's psychic. And I say to him all the time, why don't you bloody trust that? Trust your intuition, because you're always right when you listen to that, you know, like you get that gut feeling.
Yep.
Don't ignore
voice.
it.
Exactly.
It's for a reason. It's your body telling you something, you know, and a lot of people don't understand that, but it is. Our bodies know. Our bodies are made up of so many different systems, you know, like your mental body, your emotional body, your spiritual body, your energetic body. I think there is one more and I'm forgetting it, but you get the gist of it. Yeah. So.
Okay, great. That's great. And before we wrap up, is there anything that you want to share with regards to how people can connect with you and learn more about your story? Since you're moving into a new chapter right now?
Yeah, so I've started Your Embodiment Coach. And the reason that I've gone down that road, I guess, is because obviously the NDIS, I'm caring for people, but it's not overly fulfilling for me, because I am very results driven, I guess. And when you work with people that they don't give a shit, it's not overly fulfilling. So I've started coaching people in the private space. I've been invited to speak on stage. Just so then I can actually, I guess, get my word out there. But the reason behind my name, I guess, Your Embodiment Coach, is because I embody everything that I am teaching my clients. I've done exactly the same frameworks. I know how it works. You know, and I just want to give back to people in the community. I want to be able to teach them that their life, it doesn't matter what they have or where they are, they can have a beautiful life full of peace and harmony. You know, it's just we can remove that ceiling and those limiting beliefs from their lives and heal those wounds so they can be the best parent. They can break those patterns within, like with their husband, and stop repeating the same vicious cycle and the same fights over and over again. Those things, they're things that you need to heal in yourself. And we can heal those, and then your marriage is going to be amazing. You know, like it's like this flow-on effect. It benefits so many things in their lives. They might end up having a career change. Who knows?
Who knows?
So I've got an Instagram page at the moment that is Michelle.Smith.
I'll be sure to tag you.
333.
Yep, I'll be sure to tag you, and I'll put the website in the description so we don't lose that. But definitely, I think just your story alone is enough to attract people that are going through a difficult time, and they're just looking out the window going, you know, when am I going to get my 15 minutes? And I think your episode, to me, from what I've read so far, is that you know, survival may shape you, but it doesn't have to define the rest of your life. Sometimes the comebacks aren't loud. Sometimes it's just choosing yourself, as you said, choosing yourself after years of abandonment and abandoning who you are just to survive.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast.
You're so welcome.
Thank you for reaching out. I think this is the first of a few conversations. As I said, I'd love to have your daughter at some point, maybe when she's finished her degree. And that would be great as well.
Yeah, I'm sure she'd love that. She is so smart. She's just great.
She's a testament to you. And I think you've got to look at it and go, this is what I can accomplish when I start to, like I said, you choose yourself and you don't abandon yourself.
Yeah, and understanding that you can do hard things.
Yes, do hard things.
Anyone can do hard things.
Yes, I've heard that before.
We can all do hard things. If it means we cry, like I cry,
then
cry
it matters.
all the bloody time.
Then it matters. If you cry, then it matters. So
it does, but it's also cleansing. It helps you heal. Feelings need to be felt.
Absolutely.
You know, wounds can become wisdom, and they do become wisdom. It normally leads us down our purpose.
Absolutely.
Because what we didn't receive at that time, we then go and try and give to everybody else because we don't want anyone to feel that way.
Absolutely.
So it's quite a beautiful thing when you learn and you peel back the layers, and you see what actually can be.
Wounds become wisdom. I love that.
Wounds become
That's
wisdom.
one to add.
Yeah.
Thank you again for coming on to the Comeback Blueprint podcast. We'll see you in the next one.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to the Comeback Blueprint podcast with Michael Sawan. Real stories, real struggles, real comebacks. Follow these comeback stories on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and anywhere else you can find us on social media. And don't miss what's coming next.